Hi, this is Tom Soane, and I know that a lot of you that have been trying to buy properties in the last sort of couple of years maybe have been experiencing down valuations, or you probably would have heard about other people experiencing down valuations. And for those that don't know, a down valuation is where you agree a price to buy a property. Let's say it's £100,000, and then when the mortgage lender send out their surveyor to revalue the property, all they're doing is just making sure that it's worth the money that you're paying for it, that their investment and their lending is going to be secure. So that chartered surveyor goes out to the property, they do their own valuation, which is always different to the estate agent's valuation, by the way. And I have done an episode on the 3 different ways to value a property. But yeah, the chartered surveyor goes out, values the property, and then writes a report that outlines what they think the property value actually is. A lot of that report will depend on the current climate. It depends on existing completed sales. That's important. And it will be actual evidence of other sales in relation to the current climate. Now, if we're in a particularly cautious mortgage lending market, or there's a lot of uncertainty about the future of the property market is very uncertain, then a lot of chartered surveyors will be overly cautious. So they may well be a bit tighter on their valuation of a property. Which, what does that mean to you? Well, first of all, look, you forgive me if you already know this stuff. I am going to tell you in a minute how you can still continue to invest well, even if you've had a down valuation, and also how you can capitalize on down valuations as well. But for those that don't know, what it means to you is that if you were going to buy that property at £100,000 and you were going to borrow a mortgage of £75,000, but the chartered surveyor comes back with a report that says, I think it's only worth £90,000, then that means you have to find the additional £10,000 yourself in order to be able to borrow enough money to buy that property. In order to be able to buy that property. So there are other ways to get around that. Look, if you've had that exact valuation that I've just described there, you could go back to the seller of the property and say, look, a chartered surveyor has valued it at £90,000, so therefore my offer becomes £90,000. Or there could be some ground in between where you can say to the seller, look, it's been valued at £90,000 instead of £100,000, but I still want to buy it. Would you accept 95? So in that instance, you would just have to find the additional £5,000 to make up the extra amount that that has been down valued, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that does make sense. But there's another thing you can do here. You can still invest in that property if you think that the value of that property is going to increase by more than the down valuation difference. So again, if you're buying it for 100,000 and it's been down valued to £90,000, which by the way doesn't mean if you sold it, it will be sold for 90,000. What it means is, based on the evidence historically, we believe it's going to be a value of £90,000 to the mortgage lender, which is why you have to take into account uncertainty, cautiousness, climate, all of those things. So you could feel or know that that property is going to increase in value significantly. You could also feel that you're going to refurbish that property, or you're going to add value to that property, which is still going to put you in positive equity or make you profit on the price that you've invested in it. So if you feel like that, then you can still progress with that purchase, as long as you've calculated that you can still make profit, you'll still grow the value of that property, and so on. It still works for you. But here's another little twist to all of this. Think of this in a longer term, right? Because bear in mind, you're investing in this property to keep hold of. You're going to rent it out, you're going to get the rent profit, and so on. You're not going to sell it tomorrow. So if you have to put a bit of extra money in it, or it's you've had a down valuation, it's going to cost you a bit more, then think of what it's going to be like in 2 years' time. Because that's the chances are that's really where you're going to then refinance that property. Now, the same situation is going to happen again. However, there's a bit of a twist. Your mortgage lender is going to revalue the property as well. And they're going to go to the property, the chartered surveyor is going to go to the property, revalue it based on the last couple of years of sold property evidence and based on the current climate, current certainties, current property market, and they're going to revalue it. Now, actually, what's interesting is they're probably not going to take into account what they valued it at 2 years ago, because that's based on different out-of-date evidence. They're going to revalue it using new evidence. It's awesome, because if there is uncertainty today, but there's not uncertainty in 2 years, and the property market carries on for the next 2 years, selling at good values, good levels, then in 2 years' time, what is the evidence that surveyor is going to be able to calculate from? The chances are it's going to be very positive. Certainly at the moment, the property market is going crazy, and chartered surveyors and mortgage lenders are doing their best to try and keep it under some sort of wrap, trying to keep it as controlled as possible. Mortgage surveyors are being cautious, mortgage lenders are being cautious on values, but the prices are still going. The properties are still selling, and they're selling very well, and they're selling at very good prices. So what that means to you, Mr. and Mrs. Property Investor, is that if you buy a property now and it's going to end up costing you a bit more because it's been downvalued and you have to put a bit of extra cash in order to get that property through, then think about it in 2 years' time. And if you have a little bit of confidence that says to you, well, I think that in 2 years' time this property is going to be worth more, and I think that in 2 years' time I'm going to be able to get some profit out, then hey, it's not a bad shout. So those are the things that I want you to remember. First of all, down valuations aren't the end of the world. You can get around them. I mean, look, there's a ton of different ways and strategies that you can get round a down valuation. You can appeal it. And maybe I should do a piece of content about how to properly appeal a down valuation. Actually, do you know what? Sod it, I'm going to do it now, top of my head. So the first thing you could do is gather your own evidence. I'm going to give you a perfect example here. I bought a property and I estimated the value to be about 190,000, 195,000 once it was completed. A surveyor came out and said it's worth 175. Now, I know that my valuation may not have been spot on, but it certainly wasn't 20 grand more than it should be. I've been doing this long enough to know how to calculate a valuation. So I went back to the surveyor and I showed him evidence which effectively said, you can't buy a 3-bedroom house for under 190,000, which is in top condition. You cannot buy, in the area that I bought that house, you cannot buy a 3-bedroom house in prime condition for under £190,000, but you valued this property at 175. And he came back with a revised valuation of 190,000, which I was happy with. But I had to provide that surveyor with loads of evidence, sold property prices over the last couple of years, existing examples of other 3-bedroom properties that were sold for around the same sort of price that I was trying to achieve or more. I also showed him some 2-bedroom houses that were sold, completed for 180. And he was trying to tell me that my big 3-bedroom house was worth 175. No, just wrong. Maybe he was from a different area. Maybe he didn't quite know the area. Maybe he was being lazy. They're just human beings, ladies and gents. They make mistakes. They get things wrong. Sometimes they're having a good day. Sometimes they're having a bad day, just like you and me. Sometimes you can't be bothered. Sometimes you're hugely passionate and enthusiastic. But in that case, he made a mistake and he amended it. Credit to him. He took the evidence, he revised his valuation and got the valuation across the line. And I got my mortgage back out and it was all good and a decent investment for me. But back to the main point, there's loads of ways that you can get round a down valuation, and there's loads of ways that you can capitalize on a down valuation in the future. Like I say, it might be that in 2 years' time, the market will have grown, that area will have grown, that property will have grown in value. You're going to do some work to the property that's going to add value to it. One way or another, you're expecting it to be worth more in 2 years' time than it is now, or certainly than the difference between your purchase price and the down valuation. So if you get down valued by £10,000, then you're going to want the value in 2 years' time to be more than that difference of £10,000. So that's one way to do it. And look, you can also capitalize on this by, how can I put this into an example? Let's say that exact example again. You're buying a place for £100,000 and you know it's worth £100,000. You know that's a good deal. But the surveyor, for some reason, comes and values that property at 90,000, 10 grand less. But you know it's worth 100. Now you could go to the seller and say, look, here's the chartered surveyor's valuation, so I'm going to have to buy this for £90,000 instead. If the seller agrees to that, there is actual evidence to suggest that they should agree to that. Actual evidence. And if they go with that reduced price, but you know it's worth 100, then you've got yourself a good deal. I guess in all instances you should try, okay? It's up to the seller whether they want to accept your offer or not. You're not ripping anybody off. It's up to them whether they accept or not. And all you're doing is using the evidence that you've been given by a chartered surveyor, might I add, that is saying to that seller, look, the property is worth less than I'm buying it for. And technically it is. I mean, you might have different information, you might have different experience or different insight, but you know, nevertheless, the actual evidence from a chartered professional says that the property is worth 90. You're entitled to buy it for 90. You don't owe anybody any favors. Personally, I don't mind down valuations as long as I can either get a good deal out of it or I'm going to get my money back. As a property investor, you should always ask yourself first. The first question or the first rule of property investing is, when can I get my money back? How quickly can I get my money back? And how much cash am I going to be without in that term, in that period of time? So if you're going to get all of your money back out in 2 years' time, how much cash are you leaving in that property during that 2 years? If it's a lot of money and you feel like I could do better, let's say you're leaving 100 grand in a property. Are you going to get more money back out of that property in 2 years than you could make with that £100,000 within 2 years? I hope that makes sense. If the answer is yes, then leave your money in. If the answer is no, you could make more money with your £100,000 by not purchasing that property, not tying up £100,000 and using that £100,000 to invest in other properties. Do that. So I've kind of veered off topic there. Shock horror, I know. Well, you all know me by now, I think. Look, I hope there's some information in there. Don't be worried about down valuations. Don't just lose a property deal just because a down valuation has come in. Check whether you can appeal it. Talk to your estate agent. Talk to your sourcing agent. Talk to your mortgage advisor. They should all be able to help you appeal a down valuation. And remember, all of those people want that property to complete because they don't get paid until it completes. So they will help you as much as they can. I hope that has been of some form of help. And by the way, if you are a property investor and you want to find off-market, below-market value deals, then I run a property broker which is connected with vetted, tried, tested property sourcing agents in most parts of the country, in the good parts of the country that I would invest in or that I am investing in. So if you want me to help you find those off-market, below-market value property deals, then I will certainly do that. I'll just connect you up with the right sourcing agents and let you take it from there. Alternatively, hey, do you know what? If you would like to discuss lettings management, I don't say this enough. I don't really sell much. I'm not really a salesy kind of guy, but if you want to talk about lettings management, maybe you're a self-managing landlord now and you want somebody to take over management of your properties now, or maybe you're with another agent and you want to compare services, compare fees, or maybe you're buying an investment property and you want to talk about management, or maybe you're a self-managing landlord and you want to carry on being a self-managing landlord, but you want my documents, my templates, my guides, my checklists, my contracts for you to be able to use in the future. Let me know. Contact me. It's tom@pinkstreet.co.uk, or you can message me through Facebook, or you can comment on one of my videos and I'll contact you. One way or another, get in contact. lettings management, property sourcing. How's that for a sales pitch? I never know how to sell in these things, because actually I'm giving you information. I'm giving you advice and tips and hints, not really thinking of it as a sales thing. But I hope it helps, and if you want to do some business together, that would be great. Speak to you all later. Take care.